Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with 10 essential American orchestral masterpieces for beginners. Yeah, this is a list that I generated by request because some of you had asked for some American music. We've done American symphonies. If you look at these lists and just look up the word American in the little search thing in my homepage, my channel homepage, you'll find all kinds of American music things, I believe. I mean, I remember doing them, so they should be there. But here I wanted to talk about things that are not symphonies, and that sort of give us the range of American music of various kinds. And I include film music in that, which is one of the greatest contributions of the American classical music universe to our civilization, even though it's been slow to be accepted by the snotty classical music community at large. Anyway, here they are, and we're going to talk about them, and I hope you will listen to some of them. One rule, as usual with these beginners lists, only the beginners lists, no suggestions for what should have been or shouldn't be on it. I don't want any suggestions for more things. We don't need more. 10 pieces of music that will be unfamiliar for beginners, and I delude myself that there are beginners out there maybe paying attention, but I think so. I think 10 pieces is enough, and so it's not helpful to offer more. Maybe we can talk about other American orchestral pieces in other lists. I would love to do that, but please, be nice to the theoretical beginners who may be watching this. Hello, theoretical beginners. And if you are a theoretical beginner, you can go to this list or go listen to anything you want, if that's what you wanted to. But I'm trying to be helpful, so help me be helpful. Thank you. Next, Chadwick, Symphonic Sketches. That's what we're starting with. This is a wonderful four-movement piece in kind of quasi-symphonic form by one of the great composers of the New England school. That is from the late 19th and early 20th centuries. He was really a first-rate composer. He wrote 3 symphonies, the third of which is really a beautiful work that should be played rather frequently. It's no reason not to do these symphonies. And of course, they'll never be played, especially not by Americans who don't have any confidence in their own composers. But the symphonic sketches are programmatic, and they have cool little titles like Hobgoblin and a Vagrom Ballad and things like that. And they're colorful and tuneful and really nice. And if you like any kind of programmatic four-movement thing by anybody, you're going to enjoy these. You'll enjoy it very much. I guarantee it. So there's that. Then we have Griffes. Charles Tomlinson Griffes, The Pleasure Dome of Kubla Khan. Now, Griffes was a very, very interesting composer. He died quite young. I think he was in his 20s when he died. He was enormously talented. He's best known today for his piano sonata. He evolved a very sort of spiky modern style in his last works. But his earlier stuff is quite impressionistic and late romantic, decadent, yummy. And very and concise as well. The Pleasure Dome of Kubla Khan is not terribly long, but I mean, just look at the title. I mean, it also fits in our category of Orientalist masterpieces, by the way, which we recently have been discussing. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful work by a composer whose full orchestral works fit on like one disc. He wrote the poem for flute and orchestra, which is just lovely, and good guy. Really good guy to know, and there's not a lot, so enjoy what we can. Piston, Walter Piston. Of course, he's known as a symphonist. He's also from the second generation, more or less, of the New England school, one of the great American neoclassicists and pedagogues, because he taught at Harvard and wrote books on counterpoint and orchestration and harmony, and they're still used. I mean, they're very good textbooks. But the 3 New England sketches are absolutely wonderful. It's his only programmatic piece. The only one he did, and they're beautiful. There's oceans and waves, because New England is coastal, and just a wonderful and colorful piece that deserves a lot more attention, as usual, than it gets. Copeland, we have to do some Copeland. What are we going to pick by Copeland? Well, it's got to be one of the populist ballets, I think, and I picked Rodeo because it begins with Buckaroo Holiday and ends with a wonderful square dancey type thing, which was the beef commercial Remember, beef, real food for real people. It's the hoedown, actually, is what it's called, which is a dance, a barn dance, and it's lovely. The music is full of folk songs, orchestrated with Copland's typically spacious open air chords and harmonic assembly, and you'll recognize it when you hear it. I mean, it's very, very popular and deservedly so. Then we have another triptych in New England, Ives, a wonderful thing to compare to Piston. The Ives, Three Places in New England. What an incredible piece this is. It really is. The first movement is the St. Gaudens. It's a tribute to the Black Regiment that fought in the Civil War. Really an extraordinary history and legacy, and a beautifully moving piece. Slow movement that begins with this haze of dissonance that slowly evolves into sort of a funeral march. And then you've got Putnam's Camp in Reading, Connecticut. Well, I used to go to Putnam's Camp in Reading, Connecticut. It was a school trip. It has Putnam's Cave, where he hid out from, wolves or Revolutionary War people and whatnot. You can go into the cave, and it's fun. It's a picnic ground now, basically. Putnam's Camp, Putnam Park, actually, it's called. And in this case, what Ives is portraying is a sort of a Independence Day celebration where two brass bands collide, marching down the street in opposite directions, which is something he supposedly saw in his youth in Danbury, where my grandparents lived and where my dad was from. And I really, really think this piece is great. And the finale, the last movement, the Housatonic at Stockbridge. The Housatonic River is the river on the banks of which I grew up. It enters the Long Island Sound in Milford, Connecticut, between Milford and Stratford. That's the Housatonic, but it originates all the way up in Massachusetts. And there's a covered bridge in Stockbridge, which you can still see. And this is a portrayal of fog rolling over the river at early morning with bits of hymn tune floating by from a nearby church. And then the river rolls on toward the open ocean in a huge dissonant pileup. It's one of the great American tone poems, and it's only 5 minutes long, which is even better. So give the Ives a shot. And people tend to shy away from Ives because his music is experimental and dissonant. I mean, he wrote all this stuff in the first 2 decades of the 20th century, and he was like billions of years ahead of his time, and nobody played his music. And it's extraordinary. He's an extraordinary voice in Western music generally, in American music in particular. Then we've got John Adams, he's still alive and kicking and churning stuff out, some really good stuff. He's one of the great living composers from any country whatsoever. And I chose the grand pianola music because it's funny. I'm just going to leave it at that. It's got pianos, and it's a sort of quasi-minimalist thing, and it was trashed by some people when it was first released because people took it as not serious, and that's its great quality. The fact that it should make you smile. It's enormous fun to listen to. Then John Williams, the film composer, of course, his suite from Close Encounters of the Third Kind. I mean, this is as good a suite as the Peer Gynt suite or the Corellius suite or the Nutcracker suite. Pick your suite. It's a suite. It's incidental music. It's fabulous. But Close Encounters of the Third Kind is interesting because most of the time when we do the John Williams suites, people think of Star Wars. That's his most famous one. But Close Encounters of the Third Kind was written around the same time, and it's a very different score. It's a movie in which music is a basic fundamental element of the plot. And so it gave him the opportunity to compose some really extended symphonic music, working with the basic motives that permeate the piece. Da, 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 that thing and whatnot. It's an extraordinary score, a wonderful accomplishment, I think, in 20th century film music. And a major work, really a major work. So give that one a shot. That'll be a little bit different for you. Then we have George Crumb, Music for a Summer Evening. I love this piece. Oh, my God. Also known as Makrokosmos 3. Music for a Summer Evening is scored for 2 amplified pianos and two percussionists. It's kind of similar to the Bartók Sonata for two pianos and percussion, except it has a whopping amount of percussion, a lot more percussion. And you do a lot of things with the pianos. You stick paper in it, and you play inside the piano, and you do all kinds of nifty stuff. It's an amazing, amazing work, full of, with real sort of spiritual content to it. I can't even describe it. You just have to listen to it. It's incredibly evocative, and if it exercises an absolutely hypnotic effect on audiences, and it's fully contemporary, modern, often atonal, but it doesn't matter. What I mean is, it's a unique musical organism that is what it is, and if it hits you, it's completely self-consistent. I don't know how else to describe it. It's just a masterpiece, an amazing masterpiece of American, well, as we said, orchestral music, and this is two pianos and percussion. But what else is that? It's a enlarged chamber, quasi-orchestral thing. And you really ought to get to know it because it's a screaming masterpiece. It's amazing. Then we have another film special, Bernard Herrmann, his suite from the Francois Truffaut film, Fahrenheit 451. Now, this is for strings, harps, vibraphones, and other percussion stuff. It's a Ray Bradbury story. If you don't know what the story is, it's about how in a future dystopia, people are all drugged to keep them mentally calm, and books have been banned. And it's a little bit like 1984, and you have a fireman. The fireman's job is to locate hidden stashes of books and burn them. And he meets a girl who is a rebel, and who is interested in literature and reading, and eventually they go off to join the opposition. And really, it's the revolution against this government. It's really, and the music is great. The music is just great. It has that strange hypnotic, you feel the drugs taking effect on people's minds, numbing their senses, but there's also the flaming fire music and all kinds of stuff. It's a brilliant, brilliant work. One of Herman's great scores, and he prepared an absolutely lovely suite. Esa-Pekka Salonen recorded it on Sony, first-class performance, and amazingly wonderful music. And last but not least, Christopher Rouse. Christopher Rouse wrote a piece called Gorgon. You know what the Gorgons are? Medusa was a Gorgon. It is an incredible piece of orchestral mayhem. I can't describe it any other way. It is percussive. It is loud. It is insane. It has one of the most noisy and exciting and viscerally impactful endings you've ever heard in your life, actually. It's Medusa, with the snakes in her hair and all that stuff. So there are three Gorgons. Each one is illustrated by a little small orchestral vignette, and they're separated by interludes, and quieter interludes. And boy, oh boy, should you hear that. Christopher Rouse was a wonderful composer. He passed away at a rather young age, and his music is full of rhythm and anger and sort of the progressive rock type anger. That was the school out of which he came or was involved with. And yes, you're going to want to hear Gorgon. It's only been recorded once, I think. Marin Alsop did it with the Colorado Symphony. It's on RCA. So grab it if you can and give it a shot. You won't be sorry. So there you have 10 really varied and I think interesting American orchestral pieces or quasi-orchestral pieces for beginners or people who aren't beginners or people who, don't know them. Give them a listen and you'll be very happy, I think. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for taking the time to investigate some of this marvelous, marvelous music. Take care.